About 3 or 4 years ago, I thought my kids left home and I thought I need to do something new. So I did a small business course and I was having lunch with a bunch of women, not unlike most of the women in this room, and one of them said, I just don't know what to do. My husband's gone away with his new wife. He's left his mother in a large house in Urunga. I'm trying to run a business. I've got 3 kids at home and she needs to move and there's no one to help me. And I was sitting there having lunch thinking, I could do that. That'd be a really good job to do. That'd be a really nice gap to fill. So I started Ready, Steady, Relax, which is basically a relocation service to assist seniors when they're moving. So while a lot of my work happens with some of you more sprightly people, and I do help people move in and out of retirement villages, the majority of my work comes through social workers, lawyers, real estate agents, various groups of people who have a client who is saying to them, I'm going to move to the next stage, or I'm being told to go to the next stage, I've got to go, I'm in a rehab hospital and I have to go into care, or I've made a decision that the house is too big and I can't manage anymore and I'm not well enough to look after it. I've got no kids, or my kids live overseas, or my kids are so busy they haven't got the time to help me. So what I do is fill that gap. So I go in and talk to the family and I talk to them about their needs. The client, it's client-centred, so the person who's moving is the client. Even though they don't necessarily pay the bill and even though everybody else has different wishes, we focus on what that person needs to get from A to B, how they get there, and then we try and solve all the physical problems for them. So, for example, we have clients who, I think I was telling a few of my colleagues on the table, I had a woman recently who was a 96-year-old spy, and she lived by herself down in the southern suburbs of Sydney, and she needed to go into low care. She was not unwell, she didn't have any signs of dementia. She had a very sore, she was having some minor strokes, and she realised, living on her own, that she was in a dangerous situation. She had no family living locally, had a couple of relatives in Victoria. So she made the decision, and I'll talk a bit later about how it's important for the client themselves to make the decision, because if that decision gets forced upon you, it's an unhappy outcome mostly. So anyway, she made the decision she'd move. She chose where she was going. She decided what she would take. I was sitting with her, we were going through all the things that she thought were important to her, and amazingly, a lot of it wasn't. She had been Frank Packer's PA, and she said, oh no, they're all presents from Frank Packer, I don't want any of those. And I'm thinking, oh God, we would go, oh, you've got to have your stuff from Frank Packer, just from historical reasons, or you've got to have all this. No, she had thought about it, she had made decisions, she wanted photos, she'd emptied her wardrobe, she had 6 of this and 8 of that, and her beautiful shoes and her books and a few other things, and so we got packers, we packed it all, we took it with us, we took her with us. So we physically took her, we took all her stuff and we set her up in her room. So her family ended up with the Frank Packer memorabilia, so they'll do very well out of that. The other thing we do is, once those decisions are made, we then get in the people who will help backfill all that stuff that people usually have. So I have contacts, or wherever I am, I'll find the contacts that are involved, the antique dealer or the second-hand dealer or the charity or the unique thing. I had a lovely lady who had dementia. She was a machine knitter, and she had a whole room of wool, the most divine wool you've ever seen. Beautiful big, what do you call those big triangles of wool that skeins that you use on the machines. And I thought, what do you do with a room full of wool? So I tracked down the New South Wales Machine Knitters Association. They were out with a truck as fast as you could blink. So I love the fact that it's having a conversation with the client, finding out what they want to do in the next step, and sitting with them and working out the possibilities for doing it the way they want to do it, rather than having the truck turn up and everything just being disposed of. I was saying that in these jobs that I do, I recently did a job for a social worker, and her husband had dementia and she was unable to pack her house up. She was going into a retirement village, but it had a care facility on the campus, so she could go in to independent living and knowing that her husband was being well cared for. Anyway, she was a great woman, and we used to sit and talk about we knew all these people in common, and it was very interesting. And she said, I've got a really good contact. There's a woman in Pymble who has a double garage, and one of her friends was a victim of domestic violence and went into Lane Cove Women's Refuge. And she said she has now decided that she will prepare all the possessions for all the people going into public housing through through Hornsby and Lane Cove refuges. So she now takes, I don't have to ring Vinnie's anymore, thank God, or the Salvos, because you've got to book them 4 weeks. So I can't do anything fast with Vinnie's and Salvos because it all, So this woman now will take things that you would usually say are useful, but often the charities won't take them. So she'll take beds, and she'll take microwaves, and anything that works she'll take. She puts it in her garage. If it's of any value, she'll sell it, and then that pays for the carrier. I'm doing a job next week where this woman's so grateful that we're helping her mother move into care that she's offered, this is the daughter, has offered to pay for the carrier to take all the stuff to charity. So it's flexible, it's interesting, and it allows people some control over the next stage. So just briefly, I wanted to say, having just talked about me and what I do, some of the things I've noticed is that the biggest issue is the lack of planning, and I think that's been a theme through everybody's talk today. If people don't take the opportunity to plan the next step, then someone will plan it for you. And, oh my goodness, I think, if you've got a very supportive, caring, empathic family who love you to death and you actually agree on everything, you're fine. But if you have a slightly different view from them, then I think you'd be wanting to think about how you want it to happen. And the other thing is, it's inevitable. So while there's fear and there's anxiety and there's loss, and there certainly is loss, people have possessions that they have to give up. They have locations they have to give up. They have to give up communities. They have to give up all sorts of things. But on the positive side, I've really noticed for people who plan, they can choose where they go. They can choose how they get there, they can choose how much they pay for it, they can choose the sort of communities they want to go into. They can make lists, like we were talking about this morning, making lists and prioritising what you want. Don't wait till you get into hospital and have that broken leg or that broken hip and have someone organise it for you. Don't wait for the ACAT team to do it for you. So what I'm saying is that there are quite a lot of positive experiences, and if people do have a chance to plan and do have an idea about what happens next and where they want to go and where they want to spend the next phase, because there's plenty of phases after that, going into retirement or into low care, that's just the beginning of a very long journey, I can tell you. They're very old out there. So, if you plan for it, then you get to do what you want to do, and you also get to prioritise the things that are important to you. So that's my suggestion. Thank you.